prepping you for the.
It's Friday.
All right, folks. We're gonna call this meeting to order. It's June 20th, 2023, regular board meeting. Please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Roll call when you're ready.
Nielsen,
Here.
Northway,
Here.
Fox,
Here.
Ferris,
Here.
Van Meter here.
Great. Adoption of the agenda before us. I've got a couple of corrections to it. If anybody else wants to go first.
I think under zoning, I think we are gonna talk about, line.
Right, that's a, I shortened it
Crystal
crystal air.
That's okay, we are gonna talk about it.
Yeah, and the part that should be underlined is the enforcement part. I think he's talking about Crystal Air and in general enforcement, and that's what his handout is. There should be no underline under IT. There is not a document that goes with that. Cemetery financing, there should be an underline. Yes, underline that. And I think those are my 1, 2, 3 corrections. Anybody else? With those corrections, I amend the agenda. Anybody second? Okay. Any comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Thank you. Conflict of interest at this time. Does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest? Let the record show none. Minutes are in front of you. Anyone wish to comment? I'll go ahead and let's see. I'll just go ahead and move that we accept the minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those, or any discussion?
You both said second at the same time.
Okay, no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Thank you. Next thing is the county commissioner's report.
That was record time, you guys.
Get through this.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to, you have the minutes and I believe you post them online, so the report on that. So I'm just going to cover a couple things, and if you have questions. I'm a liaison for the Point Bessie Lighthouse, and just as a note of information, they are seeking a treasurer. You didn't have enough time in your day. No, if you know someone, just contact them directly. At the last Board of Commissioner meeting, I just want to highlight a couple things that we talked about. One was Networks Northwest completed a feasibility study and that they were asked to do, and looking for a Benzie County Parks Recreation Director. Of the participants, usually it was directors of departments that were interviewed. Everyone was in favor of that except one. And the need was stated as a coordinator for the county and also helping get money in grant research. So those were the 2 top ticket items on that. The other thing that we discussed, and I would like to hear from you if you care to email me or anything, Karen Cunningham, District 3. We are thinking of a pilot program of having a child in the workplace, supporting our parents, our mothers, for a child that is 0 to 6 months, that they would be in the workplace with them. But usually 3 months you're not there, so it would be for 3 months, and we're looking to get input about the public, what you think about that. I mentioned it at this Frankfurt City Council, and there were several that talked about favored. It's kind of a mixed bag, but if you have an opinion on that, please reach out. It's just would be a benefit to bring us into modernity. I think that some workplaces do allow that now. And with it being a crisis situation here in Benzie County to get early child care, so. Anyways, but if you have an opinion on that, please reach out, because when we vote on it, I want to reflect what you're telling me. I went to a couple kinship meetings. Kinship is for children that are no longer with their parents and they're staying with a kin, possibly like a grandmother or whatever. And they do not have fiscal support from the state at this point in time. So a coalition in Manistee and also in Benzie County are looking to, they've created peer-to-peer groups as support groups for these people. And we had our first meeting for peer-to-peer on the 15th of June. But they are also looking to create a liaison position that would, give the information to the board. Other than that, you can read the report, and if there are any questions I can entertain, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll sit down since you're so good tonight.
Under community, what's the HQ stand for?
HQ is, MIHQ is that accelerator that is looking at Frankfurt. It's also Traverse City for doing that research for water products
Okay,
and more.
That's what it's
It's
called.
it's more like a think tank and small businesses grouped together. What they're thinking in that is they're looking for a place that has a deep water port, which is here, not, Grand Traverse Bay, but, they're also looking at housing and childcare and a lot of other things, but we're hoping, and we actually have a meeting on that tomorrow. I also, we are getting more Robin information for the broadband, and I've made an appointment to get clarity on a few things that some of you have emailed me about for broadband. Are you on the list? Will it be a monopoly, or will you have choices? Are two of the top questions, price increase. So I'll get those answers, but I don't have the appointment until next week.
thank you. Any other questions?
MIH2, is that environmental?
It can be.
Are you talking about PFAS and that kind of?
It could be, it depends. It's an incubator, so it's for small businesses, would be in one building. And if that answers your question, so it may be. And what they're trying to do is, instead of, if you're a small business and say you only have 2 or 3 people in your business that you're exploring, you probably can't, you don't have legal advice, you don't have HR, so that would be housed there and taken care of for them. But like I said, it's all in the idea status right now, but we're really hoping for it. It'd be great for our community, I think. But thank you for that question, if I answered you.
I think it did, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Next is correspondence. It's not listed on the agenda, but we've had 2 late submissions. The one from the auditing firm says that they're joining with a larger company, and the other is informing us that their herbicides going to be used to clear the pathways under the power lines. I actually have had people come to our house, and my sisters Have you any experienced this? There's a knock on the door and there's a guy from Thunder Bay telling you that he's gonna spray herbicides on your property?
Yeah,
We gotta know.
years ago, I did have that happen. But no one approached me this year. And, I'm probably gonna have to call them because I've got cattle over under those power lines. And I ran around having a bunch of herbicides. Whatever they do, so I've got to call them.
Yeah, I looked up and wrote notes on all of the chemicals.
Yeah, if you'd like it's on the line, online, or if you wanna download what chemicals they'll be spraying and so forth. So, any other correspondence to report at this time? Thank you. Public comment at this time. When you raise your hand, would you clearly state your name and address? So, you first?
So I am Terry Schumann, 2375 Carlson Road. So today, just real quick, we want to talk about the Mr. Robotham's blight problem, which has become more obvious now that the trees are all gone. And, you know, actually, we could even consider rolling Larry Robotham Jr. In on the same conversation here, and he was on Airport Road, of course. So I spoke with my neighbors, a couple are here, and everybody's in agreement that it is a problem, it is an issue, and it needs to be taken care of, or began to be taken care of. The issue is definitely property values. That seems to be the big concern. I know for myself, I considered selling my house last year. The lady looked at the pictures online, thought they were great, came to my house and said, oh, I can't live next to that. So that says whatever it says, and I just paid $2,000 for a fence, so I don't have to look at it until it does get taken care of. So in a nutshell, this is what we're asking the township to do. So we're asking the township to use their powers to wedge Mr. Larry Robotham into some action to begin to get it cleaned up. There's a lot, the people I talk to, my neighbors, understand this is not gonna happen overnight. It took a long time to create it. It's gonna take quite a while to clean it up. I spoke with Mr. Larry. He's a nice old guy. You know, he's a Vietnam veteran. He's a veteran of the Park Service, a government employee. I mean, he's just a nice old guy. He realizes he cannot do this on his own. He's got family that can help. So we are hoping with the township, and we can reach out into the community and also get some help to begin, you know, to get the ball rolling. You know, once you get moving, it might actually be easier. So those are two of the things that we're asking for, and that is to say some community action. So in reference to that, as far as any kind of community action and to see what the board is gonna do and is able to do within their powers, is I'd like to come back next, we have monthly meetings, right?
We do.
I'd like to come back next month, be on the agenda, speak with the enforcement officers here, speak with Mr. Robotham, speak with his family, see if I can reach out into the community, to see if we can get some help, see if we can find out anybody who knows scrappers, those kind of things, people who come pick up some cars, things like that. And if I can be put on the agenda next month, then maybe I can come back and report, and hopefully we'll have some progress. Okay? And there's only one other thing, and that's that, in talking to some of my neighbors, I wish they were more optimistic. Because they said basically in a nutshell, most of them, all of them wanted something done. Most of them said the township isn't gonna do anything, and Mr. Robotham isn't gonna do anything. Well, I don't believe that's true. I believe everybody here wants to make some action, and I believe we can get some community help. I will say though, a couple of neighbors said that if nothing happens, you know, over a period of time, not tomorrow, that we may consider as a neighborhood hiring our own attorney, and nobody wants that. If we want it to run smoothly, nobody gets hurt, everybody cooperates, it feels like a community investment, things like that. And that's all I have, so thank you so very much. And I'd answer any questions if anybody has, if I don't have the answer.
Next person?
Molly O'Neill, 49 Vine. I first of all just wanted to thank you guys for the consistent updates about the Vine, Linden, and Broadway. Like, we've been out of town, and so just wanted to say thank you, because it has been really refreshing to see that that appears on the agenda, and that resolving the issues in our neighborhood has been consistently addressed. So we're very grateful for that. I read the minutes for the last meeting, and I wanted to draw your attention to the fact there's been discussion about paying to have the neighborhood resurveyed. We paid last year in our survey to have irons set at all of the survey markers. And while temporary flags and sticks have walked away, to my knowledge, the irons have not. So like anyone with a metal detector is going to be able to find those irons. I'm happy to do it. If anyone has a metal detector, they can loan me, right? It's like this, and there's no reason that you guys should spend $1,500 having irons refound that were set a year ago. The monument markers, definitely, but I'm hoping that we can save you guys some resources because we paid to have irons set and there's no way that those walked away. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And then the last thing is, last year, when there were a bunch of email exchanges about this between me and Mr. Sarah and some of you, I had our attorney help me put together, like we took the ordinance and then we color coded sections of it. And then we took our survey and marked where on each road end on the formal survey, those sections referred to try to create a starting point for enforcement. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys have that. So I have 3 copies of it.
We've been
I
always
can
using
give you guys,
Thank you.
but hopefully that helps some. And I know I read Mr. Kucera's update about maybe changing some of the verbiage of that ordinance, but I just want to make sure that there's a starting point, like your attorneys could sign off on that. If we had some sort of like, everyone's attorneys agreed this is a valid
This is the
reading of the
blueprint.
ordinance, this is what can be done where, it would be a starting point for enforcement. So I just wanted to provide that to all of you. And again, express our gratitude for the way that this was stated at the top of the agenda.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak?
I'm awful hard of hearing, so I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Anyway, I'm probably the last of the Mohegan when it comes to Ankianwi Beach. There's nobody that's lived there longer than me because I'm the only one left from the 60s. So anyway, what I've always had a real deep feeling for Ankianwi Beach and Crystal Lake. The thing that I'm concerned about right now is it seems like we're getting into a problem in regards to rental, especially during the summer. And I'm afraid that if something isn't done, there's gonna be some confrontations between renters and owners. Because a good example is the property right next to mine. It used to be owned by Fran Larson. Maybe some of you remember Fran. Her and Tina used to live there. Well, they both passed away a few years back. And the property would then come in to the son who lived down in Fort Wayne. That was Tina's brother. Subsequently, he had it for a short period of time and decided to sell it. It was a long time on the market because the property initially was built back in the early 70s when they were pushing total electric. I don't know whether you remember that. But anyway, that house, totally electric, heat and everything. Well, you can imagine what the heating costs were. But anyway, that property was then put on the market for sale. Family consisting of 2 people, middle-aged people, husband and wife, that live in Montgomery, Texas, bought the place. it was up for sale for a long time because people didn't like the beach, they didn't like the electric heat, you know. They started figuring what it would cost them to prove all that, so anyway, the property eventually sold to this party in Texas. Well, initially, I didn't think much about it because and it was in 2018 it was sold, 2019. They came up here and started renovating. So I figured, geez, living in Texas during the summer, maybe they were gonna come up here. It's hotter than heck down there. So anyway, I was wrong. Immediately, they put it with the Agape rental. I don't know whether you're familiar with that outfit or not.
Yep.
But they're involved in a lot of properties around, especially the lake. And right off the bat, of course, it was rented for the whole summer. The original, or the owner down in Texas, the only time I ever saw him was in the spring to open the place up. And then in September or October to close it.
You got a little more time here.
Well, with the amount, I don't know, are you familiar with any idea of what the rental cost is on? Oh, gee. First it was $800 a day. A day. That just blew my mind. And here this guy is renting this place. I realized the Agape rental gets their cut. But anyway, he was renting it.
Are they a problem for
You
you?
know,
Are they a problem?
5,000 a week or whatever. So on the base of 8 weeks during the summer, you're looking at 40,000, or if it's more than that, you're looking at maybe closer to 50. The problem with that is that you don't end up with one renter or one family. You end up with 3 or 4. I can only recall, I checked this with my neighbor one time when it was rented for only with one family, 1 week. The rest of the time, it's always been more, 3 or 4. Those are 50-foot lots. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I would like to see a cap on the rental business, but maybe 2 weeks. Permit that. Anything over that is commercial.
We're
It's
working
business.
on that. We are studying that.
What?
We're coming up with a policy. We appreciate your feedback.
Because man. Anyway, now there's 3 of them. On Ankianwi Beach, there's 3
3 rentals.
dwellings.
Yeah.
They're in that situation for the whole thing.
Tell me your name.
Huh?
Tell me your name. What is your name?
My name's Doug D. Wynn.
Thank you.
And I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody about the problems that I dealt with over the last 3 years. Come out and see me. I'm easy to find.
Okay,
Because you go down Ankianwi Road, you make the bend at the lake. You're going left, just keep going until you see a sign, Old Fisherman Crossing. And also on that same tree, there's a sign that says no trespassing. I've had a nightmare keeping kids off my dog. People using my property. It's not like the old days. When renters showed some respect. That doesn't happen anymore.
thank you. Thank you.
So anyway, I'm through. I wondered if I could leave. It's past my bedtime.
Yes.
But I'd like to talk to anybody that wants to come out and see me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna score him to his car.
Okay.
Good, David.
Thank you so very much for your time.
Anybody else wish to have a public comment at this time? All right, thank you. Guest,
Go down the long.
Mike?
Each of you have a copy of the report in front of you. Membership still holding at 24, just to summarize it. I just got 2 applicants in. We're gonna go through the personnel committee to see, and they'll vet them out. We're working on setting up drone training with NMC for our drone. We figure it's gonna take, they're telling us 2 days it's gonna be for training and no weekends. It's gonna have to be weekdays. So that's gotta work with volunteer schedules. Of the run report, you saw there were 17 fires and 53 EMS calls. Of that, there were 3 fires that we got called to in Crystal Lake Township and 11 EMS calls. This month's community risk reduction message was on pet care. I think you had a problem printing one of those out.
Yeah, I did.
And it's on the website over for.
I put it on the website, but I couldn't print it out.
Okay. Keeping, pet care, keeping them hydrated, leave them in hot cars. Pavement, fireworks are coming up, drives pets crazy, thunderstorms, wish we had some rain. Toxic chemicals like insects, insecticides, glow sticks, citronella products, fertilizers and weed chemicals, to name a few, are toxic for animals, so. Try to protect your pets outside. When we go to outdoor safety, sparklers and fireworks, does anybody know how much how hot a sparkler gets? 1,200 degrees. So, yeah, they burn. Fire safety out there with fireworks, gotta watch out for very dry out there. Yeah. A discussion ensued about fire pits, because the city has a fire pit ordinance. So I was asked to contact the fire marshal. I wanted to share this information, and I talked to the corrections officer for the DNR. A fire pit can be used for recreational cooking purposes or for use for recreational or cooking purposes. And despite that there being a red flag warning, they are still allowed to recreationally use a fire pit as long as it's in a 360-degree
Circle, yeah.
circle, and so there, and it's considered a misdemeanor in the state if the fire gets away.
But you did say that a city could enact an ordinance.
Yes.
If they wanted to.
Could act an ordinance, and that's what corrections officer Weaver said. She said, yes, definitely can, but once you do that, then you have to have an enforcement officer take care of that and do that, because I'm out of the picture. The DNR is out of the picture. So that would fall under your ordinance officer to go on out and establish fines and whatever you gotta do for. Our neighbors, one of the things too is when you have a fire pit, keep your garden hose in. We had several fires in this last hot spell. People just abandoned them, they left them. And one went off to the bar and it was burning, and keep a fire hose handy, keep, water, make sure you put it out, completely stir it, put it out, stir it, put it out. And one thing I want to point out is our neighbors take a lot, he takes a lot out of elderly folks and young children. And oftentimes they don't drink enough water and they get dehydrated. But keep an eye out for your neighbors, especially if you see your neighbor out there doing yard work or something. Remind them, hey, have you had something to drink? Got some water here? Let me get your bottle of water or something. Take a break to hydrate. Quick summary: building and equipment, several pieces of equipment have been or are currently in the process of being repaired. Done a lot of fire pits. Short-term rentals, he was just talking about that, and I want to give you any questions on the short-term rentals of some of the things that we've discovered, so.
No, I appreciate it being in the report so we can read it.
Yeah, I think that's important, some sort of a follow-up. And I mentioned at the council tonight that we need some ordinance that says 30 days, we're gonna come back to visit again for the corrections on this. Community relations, working with the schools, and tonight we did a proclamation for Rory O'Grady. He made Eagle Scout, so that would be out there as well. And I've had fun, doing everything from summer programs with the elementary school to a dunk tank for the elementary fun day. Filling that up so somebody could have class. You have on your agenda grant support letter. Just to highlight a little information on that, the Michigan Fire Equipment Grant is handled by the Michigan Department of Treasury. They're offering to pay any equipment that's been purchased from August 1st of 2022 until September 30th of 2023. Right now, the fire equipment that we have to provide receipts and that the checks have been canceled and everything's been done. Right now, I've got a total of $15,320.12 that I'm gonna be asking the Treasury through this grant to be reimbursed. Now, that only goes up to $10,000 unless, of course, you have other municipalities that you protect, like Lake Township. It's $10,000 per municipality. So if I get a letter of intent, like you have in front of you.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and move that, if that's okay.
Yep.
To move this along. I'm gonna move that we, authorize the signing of the letter of intent, for the Michigan Fire Equipment Grant Program. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? I guess we have to have roll call. It's not really money, is it? It's just support. Okay, just hands. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in, opposed. Thank you, that passed. Good.
That's
We'll
it.
get that, sent to you officially.
Appreciate it.
Good. All right, thank you. Any questions for the fire chief? All right, thank you very much. Next is, the clerk's office. You want to handle the online learning subscription proposal first?
I'm not aware if we have one of those packages in place right now.
We don't.
We don't.
We've
Okay.
done this in the past. It was used a little bit. But not, I don't think we used it. to
We
cover-
tried it once before and did not utilize the amount of, right, wasn't a.
Then I guess it's a.
Good idea. Well, unless you move something and we vote it out. Well, not vote it out as in reject it, but vote, I mean, carry it out, the whole process. I didn't mean it to sound like that. So, would you like to make a motion?
I would probably be the only one using it. So, no.
All right,
Not all the classes that we may want to take are in the packages.
pardon?
Not all the classes that we may want to take are in the
Okay.
packages, so.
All right.
Okay, thank
Keep that
you.
aside.
Your warrant report is up next.
The KCI bill is an estimate. Because we don't know for sure how much it's gonna cost for that.
Do you think it's on the high side?
Yes, we did guesstimate high.
Yeah. The general fund total is $21,876.03. Cemetery fund, $203.36. And I didn't have any other bills to add to it, so,
Is there a quick summary of what was on the Visa bill?
that's mostly Otter, Adobe, Readly, the flags, Zoom, all of that.
Okay, and I don't know if you got the message, but
I
we
did.
got. Our flag order was a disaster this year, and so we got the cost of the flags refunded. Not the shipping of the flags, but at least the cost of the flags, so. We won't be using them again, but they were finally convinced, so. Okay, you wanna make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the clerk's warrant report as presented.
Do we have a second?
I second support.
Any discussion? All right, take roll call when you're ready.
Ferris,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Northway,
Yes.
Van Meter, yes, Pop,
Yes.
And elections update when you're ready.
Because people have been asking how much it was gonna cost with the new 9-day advance pre-election day voting, in-person voting. I tried to figure out a very rough estimate. There are so many unknowns. The county clerk, the Bureau of Elections doesn't know how this whole process is gonna work yet, so the county clerk doesn't know. So I don't know. But, the total for 2 elections last year was just about $20,400, and that includes not only the wages of the workers, but, services from the county clerk for data and mail, postage, printing and publishing of the ballots and all that kind of stuff. So that wasn't just wages. I figured out with one election, just the wages was gonna be at least $14,000 plus. So we're already, and that doesn't include any of that other stuff. So this 9-day in-person voting is really gonna cost municipalities a lot of money. And I'm continuing to work on the election accreditation training, which is a lot of hours. That's all I have.
Any questions for Judy? Thank you for sharing that. Jury news.
You know,
Treasury? Financials first?
Right. So there are reports for each fund, and then there is an investment report that outlines our investments for each fund, and then the total. Did anybody have any questions on anything?
I'll say my question about the cemetery till we get to the next topic then.
Okay. So with the cemetery, I did want your input as to what to do, considering if we run low in the checking account. If you look at, you can look at the reports that I had given you for the cemetery. It outlines on the statement of net assets what we have in the checking account, so $600, and then the balance is in the sweep. But the Grand Traverse, or excuse me, the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation, that's basically set aside for the North Cemetery. And then, of course, like I stated in my email, we can use the interest from the perpetual fund and the Augenstein funds if necessary. So I would just want your input if we run low in the checking account, because like I said, the groundskeeper is $3,200 a month. And the sexton is thousands of dollars a year. Does anybody have any, do you have any questions or suggestions?
Well, the overall audit report said that we actually were ahead about $1,300 between our expenses and our revenues. Which is exceptional compared to what
Ahead as of what time period, like?
that was the last audit, which was 22, 23.
Okay, so as of March 31st, we had a net profit, you're saying, of that much?
According to this, it says that
Okay.
we took in almost $52,000 and that we spent $50,000.
Okay.
So, doesn't mean, that that's gonna continue. For example, the, amount of interest is phenomenal, what you have us invested in and things like that. It could be that at any given time, factors change. It could be that, people complain too much about how much it costs to bury them, and we'll bring that cost down. It might be that the sexton doubles his fees by next year. Interest rates change, we don't know. So what is the answer to all this? We know that by law, we have to take in the money for the foundations, it passes right through us. It goes in and out.
No, I think you're kind of incorrect with that. Nothing passes through us. They collect the money, they invest the money, and
And
then
who's they?
you're talking about Grand Traverse Regional Foundation, is that right?
No, I'm talking about the foundations. I'm sorry, the foundations to the gravestones, not an organization foundation. Sorry. Yeah, so what I would say is that when I came on board 12 years ago, they were using none of the sequestered funds for Augustine and any money. They were using general fund money just to finance the cemetery. And in fact, this is not a fund that is financed by a millage. It is really just general fund money, right?
The general fund has not been supporting this fund in
Right.
years.
Not for years.
Right.
So if we are having trouble, let's go back to supplementing it from the general fund. Unless you're gonna say we don't have a cemetery or we don't hold it to the quality that it is now. What else is there? What do you say?
Well, I'm not against, using the general fund, but only if we restrict it to taxpayers of Crystal Lake Township. And not allow people from other states to come up here and get buried up here for whatever reason. Why are we subsidizing them? If we have to dip into the general fund over the years, and we have in the past, 20 years ago or whatever, you know, we had to dip into the general fund every year.
That's right, because the whole scale of things hadn't been organized. Brooke did a huge favor to us by saying, we need to get in line with, you know, more.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying that every year, regardless of where the money comes from, the cemetery gets more and more expensive to run and operate, right? So 10 years from now, you know, it's gonna be a big problem. So if you want to, I think if we want to fund it through the general fund, and I've said this many occasions before, we should have some restrictions on who can buy lots. And we don't.
We have,
And I believe, our treasurer gave a report a month or two ago, and in 1 month, I think 30% were out of towners. who bought lots.
it's misleading though, isn't it? Don't you think?
What?
It's misleading to say they're out of towners.
Well, no, they're non-taxpayers, and I think the report stated they were not taxpayers of Crystal Lake Township.
Correct. That is how we classify them.
Right, so should we be allowing them to buy lots if the taxpayers of Crystal Lake Township have to subsidize that every year?
Well, what do we charge them? About
It's not
500?
enough, it's not enough.
Well, I
If
don't
we have
know.
to dip
I
into the
don't know
general
if it's
fund,
enough or not. We did break even this year.
it doesn't matter this year, I'm talking about every
In the
year,
long
in the long run here. You're suggesting we use the general fund if we're short next year. Well, where does that, if it keeps going, why are we, if that many non-taxpayers are buying lots and we're mowing the grass for them for the next 300 years, we're gonna lose money. So we gotta stop that.
Yeah, well, we could, there's lots of solutions to that, but let's hear it from other people.
So I am going to refer to Brian's proposed improvements. So cemetery signs, let's see, replace cemetery signs, it's gonna cost about $6,000, and North Cemetery tree maintenance is $20,000. Where would you like to see those funds come from? Do you want those to? I mean, I'm gonna need some direction if we're gonna have these types of expenses.
Well, true. That's what we're talking about. And if for umpteen years, I mean, you've been on the board, what, 45 years? How long did the general fund pay for all the cemetery?
Back many, many years ago, like decades ago, every year we put money in the general fund, from the general fund into the cemetery.
My point exactly.
Right, but I don't think that's the way to go. And especially if you want to, you know, back then, there were other board members other than me. I wasn't voting, you know, I mean, I've always felt this way. I even feel this way about the Mapless for that matter, but don't get me into that.
Well, and when you brought this up before, I said, well, bring us a motion then. bring us a motion that says,
It's been discussed in the past, and, you know, I can come and make a motion, but I think we need some consensus among the board. I mean, you guys. Would you be against, in theory, not allowing only Crystal Lake taxpayers?
I'd have to have a more rigorous discussion about the
Well-
pros and cons.
Well, let's put it on the agenda for a more rigorous discussion.
Now, you were just mumbling something. Did you say you were supporting, or was you correcting him with some facts?
I
Or
agree with Dr. Nielsen that we shouldn't dip into the general fund, especially if we have the funds available in the cemetery fund. I think what I'll do, going forward, if I see that we need to transfer funds or do anything like that, I'll make sure that I allow enough time for discussion and some more solid numbers at a meeting. So this hypothetical, I guess, just isn't.
but you've actually given us documents and letters before that said this is a crisis, that we are gonna run out of money. And that we won't have the money.
I don't know what you're referring to. I need your specifics, I guess.
Okay, I can get you those emails where you, and if that's not correct, but what did the rest of you say? I mean, is there a responsibility to quote out of towners that, or non-taxpayers that still are in the area, or no obligation?
It would seem to me that to be appropriate to have a menu. And a burial from somebody from Ohio, pay more than that. And why don't we develop a method of charging?
We've done that. We
Yeah.
charge, what, $500, $700 more per person? Doc's point is that it's still not enough.
That's not nowhere in it. I mean, we're gonna be mowing the grass for 500 years. And we'll be paying some guy $2,000 each time they mow the grass. You know, in the old days, 30, 40 years ago, the cost of mowing the grass in the cemetery was $50. They did the whole thing. Now it's what, $500, $1,000 or something?
3,200.
3,200.
Well, I would imagine that everything is
That's
to
right.
measure it.
That's right. So why are we?
It also only costs $10 for a plot. Now it's 2,000.
Right, but everybody who was buried 300 years ago in that cemetery is getting a good deal.
They are.
Because they're mowing the grass and everything, and I don't think if the people that are buried there have never lived in Crystal Lake Township, never paid taxes, then why are we? Well, you know, I mentioned this before, I want to mention it, but in Europe, if you don't pay a fee every year or every 5 years,
They do dig them up and throw them.
they dig them up and they put them in a common grave. So you know, once your ancestors say, I'm not gonna pay for grandma's, you know, maintenance anymore, well, she's gone.
Do we have anything close to what's now being called green burials?
Yes, we have it. Ask me, yes, we have green burials. Has anyone done a green burial yet? No, but we offer it.
Okay.
But a green burial still has sod over it, and do you mow it or not? Now, in the beginning, Brooke and I talked about how many, like in England, you go to the old cemeteries and they're not mowed. It's all,
Green?
it's all like wildflowers, and the stones are crooked, and, you know, it's a little different look than it is here. The forest lawn look versus
What's the name of that city where Mark Twain wrote all his books on the Mississippi River? Yeah, go to Hannibal, Missouri. And I don't know how many years ago, I slept in that cemetery on multiple nights. And you're right, I mean, everything is different, everything is different.
There's a story there.
Well, you could look there and see somebody was buried there in 1562 or something, but their cemeteries are not like ours, mold like this either back then.
Well, we had a committee come to us and they wanted to have us spend money for a watering system here. You know, there are a lot of different ideas of what a cemetery should be.
Right, but I think the taxpayers of Crystal Lake Township should vote, decide on it for themselves, not for everybody else. That's all I'm saying. If we want to subsidize our my dad, if he's buried here, or my grandma, or whatever, I'm fine with that, if it's Crystal Lake. Now, if we decide as a group that we want to continue to offer that service to our taxpayers, I think that's fine.
Well, here's something to think about. If you pay your taxes, as I do, how much of my $5,000 tax bill goes towards the cemetery?
I don't.
Is it commensurate with somebody paying $750 more than the or the taxpayer?
It costs more, I don't care about the dollar amount. It's just the whole idea that we're subsidizing non-taxpayers. I mean, you can say, well, that's only $1 the burial, but the money adds up over decades.
Any other discussion or any ideas of what to do at this point? All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Reports, first is airport.
Any questions on the documents?
I might have
Just-
one.
Yeah, me too.
Go ahead.
So. In the mayor's report, the ongoing section, need to clear trees, runway 15 has been put off until 2023. Is that,
I think we want to do this end at this fall. Let's start it.
says the funding for the north end is held up till the court proceedings are complete, so
Right.
until that's taken care of, none of the trees get cut up here?
I think they want to do everything at once.
Okay, that's what I'm
It's a
wondering.
big production,
Okay,
and I'll have more information, I believe, after this week's meeting.
and my grass started to grow,
Did it?
yes,
Oh, good, just little bits.
and it's probably gonna burn up now, this weather this week.
Any other questions? I wondered about Michelle's letter and why it's written to somebody at the FCCAA. And, it's about Frankfurt not paying their bill.
That's right.
Wouldn't you write it to Frankfurt saying, pay your bill?
I believe it went there, yes.
Okay, it's addressed to this Chris Spence.
That's
So-
correct, she's at the city.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Okay, so, what's the problem here and how many years are they in arrears?
Many years, since they have been in arrears ever since everything went to the county from the city.
Okay,
I know,
ever since, so they've never,
correct.
okay. Any other questions about the airport reports? Next is buildings and grounds, you're up, Brian?
Come over here so you can hear me better. Buildings and grounds, we're right in the middle of a project, well, two things, IT, we started on the IT project at the beginning of the year. We purchased all new laptops for the board members. And the second phase of that project was to install a new server here because we had some cybersecurity issues. So that is just about complete. Chris, and Pierce were over here today. It is in the basement earlier. The server's up and running. They're gonna continue the transition to the new server. The one that's really concerning me is QuickBooks, because that's running on a separate box now. QuickBooks runs on a separate box. They're gonna integrate what's running on that box with the main server.
That means BSNA is on that one also, I believe.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep, so what they've done is they've replicated everything that's on the old server system on the new system,
okay,
but QuickBooks was running on a separate box. So
okay.
that's gotta be integrated in with the new server, and it's gotta work properly. So
Right.
just, we're gonna have to test that.
Should we be doing backups?
They're doing backups regularly, and so I
And
expect that to be done by the end of the week. We should be fully running on the new server system.
are they backing up BSNA also, do you
Yeah,
think?
Everything. Yep. So that's the IT side. The buildings and grounds side, we've had discussions the last couple months about the parking lot and the lighting. And if you've been here in the winter time, we have a 7 o'clock meeting, it is really dark out there. And it can be pretty icy too, so the concern was that we don't have proper lighting in the parking lot. So I went through and I estimated some scenarios, there's actually 3 scenarios.
The first one was to expand the parking lot. If you look over on this side of the building, we had some space, but we have a wellhead over there. We have 45 feet from the edge of the existing parking lot to the wellhead, so I pushed it out 35 feet. And then went the full 19 feet of the lot. That cost was about $17,000 just for the asphalt. And then for lighting, we wanted to put, and under that scenario, 3 light poles out there. To do that, we would have to come from this side of the building and trench all the way around the lot to get to the pole on this side, so. For power, but the big question mark there is how much property do we own in back of the parking lot? Amy thinks that the property line is like right at the end of the parking lot, so we'd have to get that surveyed if we consider that scenario. So if we do that lot expansion with the lighting, it's about $28,500. These are all my estimates, because I didn't want to bring a contractor in here and then not do the job. If we do lighting without the lot expansion, leave the lot the way it is, which is a problem during elections, because we have people parking up and down the road. We would just expand the lighting, and that's about $9,200. The third alternative is just put lighting on the building. You can improve the light fixture out here. You can go to a 3-panel LED, about 6,000 lumen. I can put one on the corner of the building over here to illuminate the parking lot. We could do that for $500. So we could try that this winter, improve the lighting on the building. If that's not adequate, we can move forward with a, more comprehensive solution.
Do we own, property south of the parking lot?
That's what we don't know. We'd have to get a survey done. Before you can consider trenching over there, we'd have to get a survey done, because I have no idea where the corners are.
So Les Klogemeyer, that's his property there, and then he gave us property over
Yep,
here.
Actually, he sold that, I think, to the Pines now.
So
Okay.
the concern is, right, on this end of the parking lot, how much do we own? We
I
have
can't
enough where
believe
we
it'd
can
be too
trench.
hard to find, because when he surveyed, when he gave us, he had it all done, so I'm sure we could find the markers.
I looked for the irons the other
And you
day.
couldn't?
I'm gonna bring my metal detector over.
Mark,
I'll tell you what, I'll bring that in, and if you wanna use it, I'll have it here.
I'm only going on what Bob Barton told me. He said that they paved almost to the line.
All right, well, if that's.
Don't know if that's true or not.
But if that's not true, the way to improve the parking, easy to go south 100 feet, if we have 100 feet, is that way?
Go south 100 feet, we don't have that, no.
All right, well, then we can't go south. But
No,
right
have
now,
to go east.
the way he has the parking with the 3 cars lined up, there's not enough room, I think, on the drawing to back up.
Right.
So,
I'm not a parking lot engineer, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think, did you look at the,
Well, you were concerned that there wasn't enough room here, and I just eyeball it. And I say, oh my gosh, there's more room to back up there than any big box store.
right, but if they put a parking, cars parked between the 2 cars that are parked now, there's not enough room.
Keep in mind,
So
we're
if
gonna
you
have
add another 35 feet,
feet.
No, it's still not, I'm not sure, it's, I don't know.
yeah, we don't know either. And until we give him the okay, he's not gonna go and start getting all these bids. But he's just saying that, the cost maybe to try the 500 something. You wanna say something?
In the zoning ordinance, there are measurements for parking lots. And setting up parking and distance between aisles and that kind of thing, so
Yeah.
we can take a look at that.
Do that tomorrow, maybe. Okay.
Well, I think, I would go ahead and move that we try option 3. Before we do anything else, and try to see how the lighting goes on the building for $550. I think that's a good option to start with. So do I have support for that motion?
With that.
Any further discussion?
No, I think that's reasonable to go ahead with that, but I think we ought to go ahead and get the zoning rules on the parking lot, let's find out where the property line is, we ought to know that anyway.
We should get a survey.
Well, she's saying that we'll know what the line is over there because
But if you could-
Hogemeyer would have done that.
can find the pins, that'd be good.
And I bet if you look in in his files in the basement, you'll find, so I remember seeing the survey, he brought everything in,
All right,
so.
And then, yeah, I'm sorry, and you were gonna do try to find the pins.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Any further discussion? Why don't you take roll call, please?
So this is
for
to.
550, it's
to the
page
550.
3,
Yep,
option 3.
I mean, do you want to give some surplus on that, just in
Make it
case there is more?
Sure, I can amend that to 600.
How about 1,000?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll amend it to 1,000. Do you
Yeah, we've
agree?
been looking at like
There's
shooting
another gable up there that I could use, a higher gable where there's an existing fixture that would project down on the lot.
I'm not so certain how viable that fixture is.
Okay.
It may be, yeah,
The fixture
Yeah,
that's
it might
way
be.
up there is defunct.
correct.
Right,
It's
but
the old.
And I don't think
Mercury.
it can be reactivated.
I wouldn't use that one, I'd let
No,
use
no.
LED.
He's just
Yes.
talking about where to place it in the gable.
Right, but the electrical wire getting to it,
You gotta get
yeah, about,
electricity.
I would support $1,000.
Is there an issue with the airport underlying?
No.
Shall
As
I,
long as-
I'll start over. I'll say I moved the 1,000 and that it's contingent on, consulting like dark skies and, airport regulation. Do I have support for that?
Yes.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Oh, wait a minute, we gotta vote on it.
Hey, Brian,
We gotta vote on it.
those 2 boxes, so you talked about 2 boxes, like the server boxes, was that like for a speed issue before? Like
It's,
an internet speed issue with
No.
between,
It's not speed, it's security. We
Oh,
want it
oh.
at the main server so that only township machines can reach that server. That's the way it's going.
but then they're gonna morph that. The QuickBooks and the other one into the big new one.
It's gotta be integrated, yes.
Okay, vote?
Yes.
Ferris,
Yes.
Van Meter, yes, Northway,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes,
Okay, that motion passes. You're up next, Rick, with roads.
um. I've had some discussions about Marquette Court, Esplanade, and Birchwood about paving the entrance to N22, maybe 20 feet with the road commission. And they were supposed to get back to me, and they haven't, on what an estimate would be on that. They were supposed to give me a recommendation, whether it should be 15 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet. And they want to do an apron. So when you go out onto 22, it's not just a 90-degree turn, it's an apron, so you don't trash the sides of the road. And those 3 roads are what we talked about, but I really was surprised that he didn't get back to me in time for the meeting. So, but I want to bring up another point is that the only people that requested this was Marquette Court. Someone on Marquette Court, nobody from the other 2 roads made a request, so we need to take that into consideration if there's a cost issue. The other thing is that Birchwood is a seasonal road. So maybe we need to consider that. I mean, it's not a year round, they don't get plowed in the winter. And maybe that, and nobody on Birchwood has contacted us about trying to pave it. Now, the funding for this would have to come, since these are gravel roads now, would not come from our road match. Would have to come from every year, the Benzie County gives each local municipality, and they give us so much money every year that we can do what we want. And we've used it sometimes for culvert, for example, I think we used it for $5,000. And right now we have $29,900 in that account. So, and in October this year, they generally put in more money. So, and I don't know, I don't think if we did all 3 of those roads, it would exceed 30,000, but I don't know. You know, so, and so I'll have to bring back next time his estimate,
Okay,
and that'll just be his estimate. There won't be a final anything, because then he's gonna put that out for bid, so it could change. But I would like to have in the minutes that we would approve, say, up to $29,000 for doing the suggested changes for the exits of those 3 roads. And also probably put in there that Marquette Court is number 1, the other 2 may not be done if it exceeds 29,000. And the next road we would do would be Esplanade, and Birchwood would be the last one. We don't have enough money, we drop that. You understand what I'm trying to say about the money back in Northway? We have 29,000 non-road millage money that we can use for this. I think we could do all three, I hope, for that amount of money, but I need an estimate.
Okay.
But they would like to see that we're serious about doing it, so we need to have a motion. Then we're gonna do those three roads up to 29,000.
Are you gonna make the motion tonight or?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, I'll make a motion tonight, so it'll be in our minutes, and so make sure they go out and get those estimates done by our next meeting, and then we'll have an estimate, and even then, if the estimate's under 30,000, you know, and we could approve it then, but we still don't know the final cost, because it has to go out to bid, and then we have to approve that again, probably.
So state your motion so we know exactly, are you,
I move that we follow the suggested improvements to these three roads, including an apron, and have that paid using our local millage
allotment?
fund, and not to exceed 29,000. And if it does exceed 29,000, we would drop, firstly, we would drop Birchwood. And then if we had to, we would drop Esplanade. That makes sense to you?
I'm gonna listen to the tape.
Well, I'm just trying to get the people to live on at least Marquette. I mean, people go on.
That makes sense, but I'll get the exact wording from the audio. Because I couldn't write it that fast.
Does he have second,
I
support?
I support.
Any further discussion? So this motion, if I understand correctly, is okaying that if the bid, if
Yeah.
comes in
It
less than
commits our
29.
board, our board has voted to do this if it meets, if they give us the criteria, which we
Right.
don't know, and it's less than 29,000, then we don't have to use our road millage fund. We need to use that money up somewhere anyway.
I'm just wondering, is there any other project on the horizon? Any other, I mean,
Not that I know of, because most of our road maintenance and stuff is covered under our road millage. We can't do gravel roads, we can't pave them. And every year, you're probably gonna add another 5,000 or 6,000 in October to this. You've been adding every year. We've never been able to use it because.
I just asked if they'd heard
No, we're
any
not
other,
aware, and I'm not aware of any citizens wanting something done.
didn't know if we had any other trouble spots that the road, committee had
No, I'm not aware.
seen
I
with
mean,
their own eyes around the whole, are you going to suggest on Keonway or?
No, but listen later. There's a non-paved gravel road there that is.
Do something too.
People who live in the township who live on a gravel road should petition or make their point to the board that they would like that paved if they could.
Right.
And if it's Gray's Road, which is a mile long and costs $2 million, we're not gonna do it. But if we build up this local road millage funding in the county, and we could do their area for $10,000 or something like that,
Boyd Road is terrible.
then maybe we should do that. So you should let us know. If you don't tell us, we're not gonna do that.
Any other discussion about the motion that's on the floor? Go ahead and take a roll call, please.
Northway,
Yes.
Ferris,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Van Meter, yes. You paused.
Now I'm thinking before we move on, M115 was done, as you know, I think it was just done yesterday, the final sealing. So I want everybody on the board to, you've obviously seen it and what they think of it, because.
Very noisy.
Yeah.
Very what?
Noisy,
Okay, well,
driving on it,
that's what we need to know.
little
I mean,
feedback there.
because the state is doing that on all, they're doing it on, they did it on 31 from the county line all the way to Westville. You know, that was just done they just finished it up last week. And their engineers feel that you take asphalt roads, and M115 was actually, I thought, in good shape,
Yeah.
I do too.
right? So I
Yeah.
was surprised when they were doing that, but they feel, and I've talked to the road commission people about this too, they feel that putting this code on that is gonna prolong the life of 115 with 5 to 10 years by doing this.
Is it really done? Like that's how it is today is what
That's how
they're
it's gonna
doing?
say. Now, what'll happen is, it'll get beaten down with the snowplows, but if you recall, you probably don't, but tar and chip used to be done by the county decades ago, and that was always a mess. Stones kicking up for years after that, but they've really sealed this pretty well. And the cost is about a third, 30% of asphalt. Now, if we do asphalt on our asphalt roads, another layer, all that does is the same cracks are gonna appear. I mean, it's gonna crack again, the same spot it's been cracked. It may take a year or two, but it'll crack again. And this may be a better way to go if the, these are, I hope they're decent engineers, figure this is a good idea, what they're doing on these roads, so maybe we should be following their advice. And the county doesn't do this anymore, it's a separate company that does all this, so that's why this is, I think, looking pretty good now.
Instead of tar and chip, it's called chip and seal.
Chip and
It's
seal
a,
that,
it's a new,
everything
new chapter
evolves
in-
over time, and they've improved the whole way of sealing it now.
Yeah.
That's what they've done today. Huh? So I think it's something that it's gonna make a difference to us because the road committee is gonna meet in September after Labor Day, I think, and recommend what roads we do next year. And we've already decided which roads should probably be done. But we didn't decide on whether we should try for asphalt again because we don't know the prices. And we wanted to see what this looked like. So we'll have another meeting and Bruce, I know I've talked to him and he thinks this is a good idea. What they're doing here for a third the cost.
well, we'll look forward to what you
We'll look
recommend.
forward, we'll recommend that in the fall. And if we do that, we're gonna save a lot of money, because we'll end up doing all the roads like this. And that's gonna make an impact on whether we wanna ask for another road millage in 2024.
Okay, thank you. Zoning, you're up.
Yep.
There's a document in front of you that you should have.
I'll just comment on the road. All I can feel here is the road grinding the tread off of my tires.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, crap on the car.
Not sure where to start. I'll start with, my report. And basically I had at your behest, I had the township attorney look into the ordinances that we have regarding enforcement. And as you can see in my report, they have suggested that certain things need to be rewritten. Regarding the ordinance for Broadway, Linden and Vine and Lakeview Drive, they've made the recommendation that the ordinance passed in 2002 be rewritten to more closely match the judgment and stipulations of the court case. And then also that ordinance does not make clear what happens if there is a violation. Is it a municipal civil infraction? It doesn't state whether it is or not. And so we need to clarify, they suggest clarifying the penalty clause if there is a violation. And it is also not clear in that ordinance what officer is responsible for enforcement, whether it's called the enforcement officer or whether it falls under zoning. And so again, they suggest that that needs to be clarified. Which then turned to the ordinance that was passed in 2015 regarding the enforcement officer, and they have two suggestions for that. That those ordinances need to be clarified. And one of the things that they talked to me, they did not put necessarily in the report, but we talked about, and that is that the board should make clear specifically who the enforcement officers are. Okay. And I stated here that if there is no township enforcement officer appointed by the board, then that should be done as soon as possible. I'm not sure that there was ever anything appointing a specific officer. And then finally, ordinance passed in 2013 establishes the authority and issuance of municipal civil infractions, and establishes a violation bill. Again, that should probably be reviewed, and all three of these ordinances made consistent in definition and language as to what happens when there is a violation. So that's,
Who would do all this?
who would do all this?
Yeah. Would it be like a committee that we would have, and then give our feedback to the attorney? Does the attorney rewrite everything?
My suggestion is you have the attorney revise the ordinances that are in place and send them back to see, and then discuss whether there's agreement.
Is that something, a motion we should make?
Well, yeah, that's my recommendation down here. Move to have the attorneys review and rewrite the ordinances as necessary. And of course, you need someone to coordinate that with the attorneys and give them direction along the way.
What you're suggesting would also apply to Carlson Road, where you make changes that might address that blight issue too.
Again, yeah, it would be worth looking at.
I mean, we gotta combine
As
everything.
far as I know, that's the only other ordinance police power ordinance we have is the blight ordinance. Or, we don't have a blight ordinance, sorry, all we have is a junk ordinance. We do not have a blight.
But if we're gonna review, our attorney review this situation and Broadway revise some ordinance, should we try to do some blight issues at the same time?
Well, and how about the dangerous buildings? I mean, we
Or
talked about,
add that on, yeah. We don't wanna change
the
the
article,
ordinance and then change it again a year later.
right, I mean, this is kind of what the board directed Tom to look into before, was an overall enforcement problem we're having. It's like, who's enforcing what and what
We have-
things and how?
The zoning ordinances are clear on enforcement. We do not have a police department. Okay? So we do not have any police officers. Grant Soa, who is doing the enforcement now, does not have the certifications to operate as a police officer. Nor does he have the insurances and liability. That's another thing that the township needs to look into, is if we have an enforcement officer, he needs to have liability coverage. Okay, because he's out there, someone disagrees with him, takes a poke at him, hits him with a baseball bat, and he sues the township. So if you have an enforcement officer in police actions, I mean, I run the same risk as the zoning ordinance officer that someone can, they go swing at me. And so anyway, again, that's something that should be reviewed with the insurance company, and possibly put into ordinance form. What is the, are we only gonna hire certified officers, people that are certified as police officers to be enforcers? Or are we gonna hire just anybody and then the township provide some form of coverage for that individual? So Crystal Air, tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with the surveying company and we're going to set concrete monuments. Ground type concrete monuments with pins in them, so it's very clear where these corners are to both the general public and the lot owners down there. And once those are set, we'll have a discussion regarding whether we're going to put up fencing and fence the areas off
Okay,
to make it clear to the enforcement people where people should be, and if they're in the wrong place, Again, what is the enforcement, what is the violation? And something to consider. If someone, one of the front property owner comes out and yells at the kids or people that are out there, is that a violation? Or is the violation only someone doing something that is not specifically listed in the court order? Court order lists, I can't remember off the top of my head, but lists 3 or 4 specific things that backlotters and the general public can do on those portions of property. Sunday lounge, picnic,
Gatherings first.
gathering,
Fire pits.
and beyond that, anything else is technically a violation. If someone beaches a boat, it's technically a violation. So
Is that 9:30 tomorrow?
9:30 tomorrow, I'm meeting with the surveyors. So we'll put those in, because that's always been a question, though, when we talk to the sheriff's department about enforcing anything. They said, well, we don't know for sure where anything is. We've looked for some of your irons, and unfortunately, some of your irons are gone.
Really?
Yeah, so whether they got plowed under by the county, because the county just plows down the end of the road and pushes it into the one side or the other.
Is
And
this
they're not real
Northland?
careful where they plow.
Is this Northland that's coming?
Yes.
Do you know what, so the ordinance refers to 20 feet back from the water's edge, which of
Mhm.
course is a highly variable thing.
Mhm.
And the lake is super low right now, like the outlet.
It will be from the high water line, ordinary high water. So. In the lake level, actually, we'll actually set it off of the lake level that's defined by the court order. The lake level of Crystal Lake is set by court. Okay, Dollar General, apparently there's a question on Dollar General, I don't know how far we want to go with Dollar General. Had a consistent problem with trash and back. I went through, starting last year, June-ish, giving them notices and so on and so forth. It's culminated with a hearing in court. We're not precisely clear what court we were in. It was supposed to be heard by the magistrate. But we didn't go to the magistrate. Judge Mead ended up showing up, so we're not sure whether it was in Judge Mead's court at the district level or at the circuit court level. Anyway, there was no one from Dollar General showed up. So it was a default judgment. I understand they've come in and paid the fine, and we'll continue to monitor it. We're trying to get a copy of the court order to see what court it ended up in. And potentially we may, we're going to continue to monitor the situation, and we may request an injunctive relief. And if they don't clean up, we have the power to close the store until it is.
Are there people that live around there? Are they the ones that are complaining?
Yes. Well, I think that covers it at this point.
The feedback in July, that thing, you wanna just announce that?
Well, I think that's a continuation of what we're talking about here, is trying to figure out how to set up enforcement down at the Crystal Air Beaches.
Oh, I thought that public feedback was about Dollar General, no?
No,
Oh, I'm wrong.
I will, in that regard, one of the questions that's come up is clearing trees and so on that prevent people from walking along the beach. There is an ordinance. The overlay ordinance establishes a 35-foot buffer. That is not supposed to be cleared except under certain circumstances. And so technically clearing those trees and whatnot should not be done. Okay, or would have to be looked at very carefully under the other ordinances. But with the judge's ruling, wading out into the water around those areas that block is perfectly legal. So, for backlot owners, the public is restricted to the 2 areas at the end of Broadway and
No. The public can walk all of Lakeview Drive and the stipulation and the ordinance. The backlot rights additionally on Lakeview Drive are to lounging and sunbathing.
Not true.
Transit by foot is okay by stipulation and ordinance, which I gave you guys copies of on all of Lakeview Drive, and not even within 20 feet of the water's edge, but everything that is platted as the township road should be traversed.
as long as they are on Lakeview Drive.
Correct. Backlotters can just loiter. Like as a backlotter, I can stop and throw a picnic chair and lounge. But anyone, because it's you guys' road, township road.
Well, no, it is not a township road. We do not have roads.
Right.
It's a private, it is a private.
Platted township road.
No, it is not, no. The township has no rights to that road. It is just platted. The county has never accepted Lakeview Drive as a road. Neither has the township. So all it is a platted space.
The public has rights.
That the court has specifically said who has what rights. Normally under Michigan law, land in front of a lot that borders on the lake, okay, whether it's owned by the lot owner or not, even if it's across the road, by Michigan precedent, is the riparians lot land control. And they can prevent people from being on that property.
Right.
Okay, in this case, the court said, even though those riparian rights exist, he's going to give special rights to the backlot owners and the public.
I don't know how you keep it all straight.
I'm reading from the stipulation for consent judgment. Subject to the terms hereof, Lakeview Drive, plat of Crystal Air, recorded at Lieber 2, page 55, Crystal Lake Township, Benton County, Michigan, is a township road with all riparian rights owned by the properties. The court said it's a township road.
Okay. I'll let the doc talk about township roads.
What do you want us to do tonight?
Yeah.
What?
What do you want us to do? It's so much
Yeah.
here.
I guess if you want to go forward with police ordinances, like you're talking about a dangerous building ordinance. We have this ordinance here,
We have a fireworks ordinance,
fireworks ordinance.
and we actually, I don't know,
Jump ordinance.
does the cemetery ordinance, I mean, is there some enforcement there? I don't know. If there's a citation,
Again, that
Yeah, I
should
don't know.
probably be reviewed as to who has enforcement, who is the designated enforcement person for those things. I mean, maybe you give in the cemetery, you give enforcement to the sexton.
so, does anybody off the top of their head know any other ordinances?
I don't know, I haven't asked the attorneys for any idea what this would cost. So. Because again, if you're talking here, I guess we don't quite know the scope.
Do you want to move that? Originally, it was you and I supposed to be pursuing this whole enforcement scope. Anybody else want to volunteer for this?
Because I'm de-volunteering.
Yeah,
I volunteer, yeah.
and so do you want us, could tonight's motion possibly be that we, further explore this. We sit down with the attorney, say, what is this gonna cost, how much time, et cetera, before we commit to anything, or are we gonna commit to
Well, I
something?
think, I'm not sure the cost really matters, we have to do it.
Right, we
I
already
mean,
had,
the cost doesn't, I don't care if it's $50,000, we gotta do it.
right,
So, but I think we ought to address all the issues, I mean, not just,
I mean, the alternative is that you say, we will enforce these things, it's the sheriff's department who will enforce.
Mhm.
And in fact, just FYI, Sola put together several years ago, put together a concept document similar to the fire department. The city of Frankfurt would hire an extra police officer whose primary responsibility would be enforcement of the township. And the township would just like we contract with the fire department, we would contract with the Frankfurt Police Department. That would give them some funding to hire an extra police officer who would be of assistance to Frankfurt, but its primary duties would be enforcement in the township.
Well, there would be 2 board members, which would be not a quorum, and that would be okay, and yourself, and we could sit down, conference with the lawyer.
Yeah, I think the first thing would be to do is look at, make sure what ordinances we have.
Mhm.
You know, are we gonna include the cemetery, are we going to, you know, we have a junk ordinance. We're talking, I guess.
If we have an ordinance,
I guess yeah, we got a
It-
fireworks ordinance,
who enforces it?
yeah. And then I think we also need to bring in, as I say, the insurance company. Yeah, talk about insurance coverages or something like that.
Okay, so should the next thing be that there is just a verbal consensus? Is this the way we're going? That we have a little committee, a subcommittee that now meets with the lawyer? Judy, is that a yes, no? Just,
Yeah, I'm just trying, so. I'm trying to get it clear in my mind. So any ordinances that the township has that at some point might need enforcement. Need to be
Yeah.
reviewed,
Well, you have 2 types of ordinance.
Yeah.
You have zoning ordinances,
and the police
or you have
ordinance.
police ordinance. Anything that's not a zoning ordinance is a police ordinance.
So any ordinances that we have that are police ordinances are gonna be reviewed for enforcement.
and we figure out, does the same reference to an enforcement officer mean the same person? Or is it different according to the different, I mean, he just suggested, for example, the sexton. I mean, or that's all stuff we would be figuring out.
It needs to happen.
So is the consensus? We're not making a motion at this point, just the consensus is that we have a subcommittee that meets with the lawyers and we come back with something more substantial at the next meeting. Is that a yes for Rick and?
Yeah,
Brooke?
yeah.
And Bill?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And then all these actionable items on your report, there's what, 4 or 5 of them?
I would assume that's part of this.
Yeah. So that, we would start, and I also assume that everybody is behind doing this, expeditiously. Okay, this isn't something further to stall. Great, all right, well then, the 3 of us will figure out when we sit down with the lawyer.
Okay.
Anything else for zoning? At this point, the dangerous buildings, I'm gonna bring that up just because we talked about, all this enforcement before, so I thought we should get familiar with what we already had. And I had forgotten all about that we had passed a dangerous buildings ordinance. And I found, only the draft. I never found that anybody, had incorporated those additions. If you see the voting page, it says with these amendments, well, I never found anybody incorporated that into the document. And so, that was way when we had Dick Bagura for a lawyer. So again, that I think will be incorporated into this whole process. But I thought you should be, people have been asking us why we don't enforce the blight down at the end of Airport Road or on Carlson or over on Golf Lane. You know, if they're dilapidated, dangerous, unsanitary buildings at the archway here, we already have an ordinance that supposedly takes care of that. And I also gave you a copy of, Tom went to great length to document all the violations at Romel's. And we did nothing. So I just wanted to give you an idea. It's not an actionable item tonight, but, so any questions about the dangerous buildings ordinance packet? Also, there was that nice letter from one of the, larger law firms recommending stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a noxious weeds act.
I actually tried to pass that and it was voted down here by this board. And I did recently have somebody on South Shore and Thomas Road complaining. The house is not occupied most of the time and it's a mess and that there weeds, etc. So there is somebody in the township complaining about that. Okay, so that's put to bed for now. The millage thing, since we're running late, I think I'll just pass this up at this point. I think I should note though that I still haven't gotten my questions answered by anything written. It's not covered in the state document and so forth, so I'll be getting back to that. Last, on the unfinished business is the non-statutory job descriptions. What we got from the treasurer is very nice, but it's the statutory job descriptions. And I thought we were trying to find all the stuff we do that isn't covered by statute.
That's, so I wasn't clear on what it was that you wanted. Do you have like a list of what you do? I mean, could you, if you submit something to the board, maybe we could all follow it?
Yeah, I actually, I submitted something, I also submitted something for the clerk, what I thought, and, there's a lot of criticism of that, saying that that was not their job and da. But I do know that we all do, I do the cemetery, I do the newsletter, I do, buildings and grounds and head up several committees. I answer the phone if you want to get ridiculous about this. That is not a statutory duty. Do we, you know, where do we stop and say, you need to pay me in order to do that? I don't know. That's what we should really talk about. We, also by the state auditor was asked to clarify more clearly about our job roles here. And I guess that could change pretty rapidly with different personnel. I drop dead tomorrow who the new supervisor is going to be and whether that person takes on answering the phone or not, I don't know. I know.
Well, I didn't list if I answered the phone or not. I did list my statutory duties in the appropriate compiled laws.
Right.
Because that's basic, and again, with the deputy treasurer, it was right out of MTA. So then I went from there, and the other two things that I noticed that I was doing this year were the unclaimed property reporting. That is not statutory for the treasurer to do. That's why I wrote up the resolution and all the supporting documentation as to what that really entails. And then, of course, the Municipal Civil Infraction Bureau that Tom brought up. I was a little confused by our very vague ordinance as to what my job description there was, but it does list the treasurer to do that position. So that's why you have these resolutions in front of you. Like compensation for, because that's what I thought you were going towards here, with Judy's training. That's basically what isn't our statutory duty to do. We should be compensated for the other. I think, Amy, you've been saying that for years.
Yep.
So I identified.
No, I didn't say we should be.
So I
compensated. We
identified,
should talk about it.
the hours that I'd be working, which would be like maybe an hour a month for those 4 months for unclaimed property. I threw out a number. The lowest paid position here is $18.53 for each position. Again, with the Civil Infraction Bureau, I don't know what my job entails there, so I don't know what,
We just collected one fine.
Right.
3 fines and.
right, 3 fines my entire time being here, so.
It brings up an interesting question. The board voted before you or I,
Correct.
that the treasurer's position would be the violations bureau. Which means you accept the money for the citation
Well,
violation.
And actually, I looked at MTA and their ordinance was a bit more detailed. And so there was a bit more to it. So one of the things I'd like to do when we're talking with the attorney and to have that ordinance reviewed by him is we do definitely need that our ordinance improved. So, and then of course, if somebody else here or an employee or whatnot would like to have that position, they may gladly do so.
Well, I do know that your job as a treasurer, not you in particular, is to collect money for the
But if
township.
you read what the MCL that was directly, let's see here. MCL 600.8396, it's any employee. So it's not, it doesn't state the treasurer does that, it's any employee of the township board. So, no, by statute, I am not that person.
Except that we passed an ordinance that named you that.
Right.
So
that's
like
why-
could, for example, you four suddenly decide that I clean the bathrooms. You know, is that an ordinance that you could pass and that I would have to obey? You know,
Well, obviously, we do. Those are our township laws that we need to obey. That's why we're.
so we did pass a violations ordinance that assigned you to be that
Correct.
person.
Right.
But you're saying you don't want to be that. Or you want to be paid for
If
it.
you read the resolution, it states that I do agree to be that person, but since it's not my statutory duty.
You'd like to be paid for it.
Right,
Right.
I think that's what you were, that was your goal in all of this.
No, I've never, because remember you said, it's specifically about the cemetery. I said, no, I tried to, in the beginning, make, the lopsided, job descriptions more even by making it an ordinance that the supervisor, instead of going into his office and closing the door and sleeping for 3 hours and coming back out, would actually have more to account for. And so that's, and I always said that I didn't want to be paid for it,
Okay.
but this brings that whole thing up.
Right, and
If you can,
we look at Judy's position as FOIA coordinator, that was designated to the clerk, and that is a non-statutory duty, and I truly believe she should be paid for that.
so this is what we've come down to. Don't we need the policy in place first before we start saying, well, we'll pay you for that, but we won't pay me for that? We'll pay her for this, but we won't pay
I
for.
disagree, because our policies have taken a glacial,
And that's largely because of what?
please expound.
Because we fight so much about them.
So I have resolutions on the board. I don't think we need to wait. I don't think the policy will change anything.
So that if I have a resolution here that I'd like to be paid $12,000 a year to continue with the cemetery.
That's up to the board. But as
Right.
you said,
But
you
isn't
just,
that,
no, as you just stated, your $12,000 that you think should be paid for the cemetery was to make up for the lopsided. So in essence, you're already being paid for that.
in essence, you made that clear by saying that you wanted to hire somebody
I
else.
truly do believe we need a cemetery administrator.
And
somebody
that I
that's
should reduce my
non-political
salary to $12,000.
by $12,000 to cover
Right.
costs there.
So this is what we need to all decide, because obviously she came to this too. With
She's
the idea,
not ready to bring this forth and I am, so I don't understand.
I think
what the
that was
problem here
because,
is.
I think that was because of the newness of the situation.
Correct,
She most certainly, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, wanted to be paid for anything extra because that's what your training told you.
Yes, at the MTA training, they were adamant that anything beyond statutory duties was supposed to be compensated for, and it wasn't, it was the treasurer clerk training.
Right.
supervisors were in another room, so I don't know what they told them.
So we can't even seem to get the non-statutory duties that we're all doing. And so,
Wait, no, I just gave you mine. I don't understand why we can't piecemeal this. If you choose not to bring yours forth, that's on you. I
that's,
brought you my statutory duties, the things that I do.
and I've got a whole stack of them too, if we wanna get into that here.
Well, that's up to you, and I don't understand
No,
why
I-
I'm being penalized for doing this. I'm doing as you asked.
No, I didn't ask for you to,
Oh, you didn't ask for me, that's right, you only asked for the clerk. I see.
no, what are you talking about? I asked
All
for
right, I would
everybody.
like to make a motion.
Wait a minute, could I finish my sentence? All I'm trying to do is figure out a policy so that we can then judge everyone's extracurricular, non-statutory duties. And we need to first list and get a comprehensive look at what those duties are. You're also doing payroll that you wanted money for at some point. You wanted, you know, I want money when I clean the windows. And I thought we were waiting for those job descriptions in order to try to make some sort of policy.
In the MTA policy manual, they are not in there. Job descriptions are not listed. None of this is there. And that policy manual lacks substance. It does not even cover the things that our current bylaws cover.
That's because we
pol-
got stuck.
No,
And yes, and we skipped then,
you're stuck on my section of financial.
right, and so then I tried to switch and get to chapter 5 through 8. And you guys both said you were not ready to do that.
Mhm.
So there's something preventing us from moving forward. And in the policy that we do have, 1 through 3, we already have job descriptions. They're
So why are you
incorporated.
needing more then? Well, I don't, I
Non-statutory,
love this.
non-statutory, that's what we're looking for. We already have, anybody can look up what the statutory duties are. That's
I
everywhere.
defined two of my non-statutory duties. The first one is the Michigan unclaimed property reporting, which I think you're all familiar with because I've talked to this about, when checks don't get cashed and I have to hassle my fellow township staff. So now therefore be it resolved, the Crystal Lake Township Board agrees to pay Brooke L. Trenum Pop, township treasurer, for the Michigan unclaimed property reporting as detailed in the attached document for the lowest hourly rate paid at Crystal Lake Township, which is $18.53 for an election for fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
And what did you say
Who is
about the
going to
hassle?
approve your timesheets?
Anybody, would you like to?
Well,
What did you mean?
perhaps.
What did you mean about the hassle with your fellow persons? You had a comment in there in between
It
reading
was-
your,
I was trying to like, you know, yes, I at times have to ask if a check has been lost. We've gone through this. It's been brought to the board in the past.
I'm
So my
sorry, what?
motion is on the board. Do I have a second, please?
Excuse me, I'm running the meeting, not you, so we need to back up a little bit. Are you needing to consider when other people take money? Like, I asked you to be here to take money before, and you didn't show up at office hours that day, and somebody
You're
else.
also on a
Do
tangent.
they get to have that if they collect the money for the violations bureau?
This is, I'm talking about the unclaimed property.
I know.
Okay, so
We're using this.
I'm on
If
this.
somebody else does it, do they get the money or is it just you? And what if you're not here?
I'm not going to engage in this. You're off on a tangent and you're just being and taking this thing.
I'm trying to just get the professionalism into our policies. That's all, Brian.
I know what you're doing.
What am I doing?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Does Brooke have support for her motion to be paid? To do this?
I think we need it. I'm gonna second it, so there's this discussion. I think I need to know, and Dr. Northway needs to know, and everybody needs to know, what are we really talking about dollar-wise? The three main elected officials, non-trustees, are all paid over $20,000 a year. And I wanna know, by making these non-statutory duties paid extra, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about another $5,000 a year? Are we talking about 10,000? Are we talking about
Talking about
$500?
$60 a year.
We're talking about all the duties, not
I'm
just
talking
yours.
about, what are you really trying to get at? You're trying to divide up these duties. And what dollar amounts are we really talking about? Are we arguing
How
about?
can we put a dollar amount unless we
Well,
have
you-
the duties listed and we all look at them and say, what is this worth?
That motion says something about $18.50 an hour. Well, how many hours is that gonna be? 1,000 or 5?
She's answered that,
Right, that's what I mean. I
but
wanna
how
know.
about all the other duties?
Well, I wanna know, with all these other things we're arguing about, how much dollar amount are we talking about? Like for FOIA, if we're gonna pay the clerk more or whatever for doing FOIA, how many hours, we don't really know, but we do a budget every year, we can guess what we're gonna have to pay her extra, can't we?
Well, it all, as I say, depends. Are you gonna pay her for FOIA, but not me for doing the newsletter? I mean, where are we gonna draw the line? Shouldn't we look at the whole big picture? I'm sorry, Judy.
It's my understanding for the FOIA requests that the compensation for the FOIA director or coordinator would come from the person who made the request and not the township. That would be included in the charges. So that wouldn't come from the township.
But you think you could charge for like just dealing with all this, opening it and figuring out and doing all that? I mean, this is what we need to talk
And
about.
I think if she was elected and she's supposed to do it, then she was elected.
She's not supposed to do FOIA,
It's not
It
in
was-
her
It
list.
can be anybody,
right?
Could be anybody.
But Sue took
the
it
board-
as the previous clerk
yeah.
because nobody else wanted it.
I think the reasoning was not that. I think it was that she was the clerk and had the access to the records.
No, nobody else wanted it.
I did a lot of FOIA.
I do FOIAs also. Yep, I get one every year. I do at least 2 or 3 a year, but
Any other further discussion?
I would propose that you put together some sort of a assessment of the time you put into the cemetery. And we consider remunerating you appropriately.
I appreciate that. I'm saying, not my job, not your job, not his as the person who runs the roads committee. We talk about this philosophically and get a policy in place first, instead of playing favorites or talking about this person, or this isn't so much money, so let's let this slide. You know, I don't think the amount of remuneration is the important thing. I think it's the principle of the thing. And you have a principle that we all deal with, and then we figure out who gets paid extra. I made the huge mistake of recommending a 5% raise in our salaries last year and a 9% this year. Assuming that people were going to step up to the plate and continue doing the jobs that they kind of traditionally had been assigned.
wow.
That was a wrong assumption and I should not have done that.
Wow.
I thought, you know, before, when I first came on board, they were paying the clerk $1,000 extra for, and this is what they said, for all the extra work for elections. Do you think that $1,000 more than the other two of us would take care of all the elections work you have to do?
Elections that's part of my statutory duties.
So maybe we take you back down to the what we all make, or, you know, that's all the stuff we should be looking at.
Because I don't know the answer to this question, since the MTA made that statement at my training, do they have non-statutory job description things at their website?
No, you know, I
They don't,
see where
because
this is
every
going,
township is different.
and I'm going to retract my motion. And
I do wish you'd just talk,
No.
where do you think it's going? I need
I
to
see
know
where
what
this
you.
is gone, and I feel like it was
Could you
baited,
tell me?
and I am telling you, I feel like it was baited, and you've insulted me, and I think we need to move on. I think, what is it next?
Brooke, I
Consumers-
truly am not trying to insult you. I'm trying to
Amy,
get,
I've worked with you for a number of years, I know how you operate. Trust me.
That-
Pardon?
Is that insulting?
No, it's just,
True.
All right, anybody else on job descriptions at this point? Do you want to assign this as a project? I'm out.
I think it might be helpful if Dr. Northway and I met, two of us. Try to see what we can come up.
That'd be great. You volunteer for that?
Yeah, when are you talking about?
Pardon?
When are you talking about?
Well, I mean, a year or so ago, you invited me over to some coffee place. And I never, after you were elected, and I never took you up on it. Maybe that was because of COVID or whatever, but. You know, I think that there's three major elected officials, the trust, not to minimize the value of the trustees, but. You know, we don't run the day-to-day operations of the town. We don't want to. At least I don't. And I think how the work is done here. Needs to be, work needs to be done by somebody. And we can talk about whether the salaries that they get as elected officials is adequate enough for that. But I think regardless of that, the day-to-day operations have to be done by those three people. Three non-trustees. And are they paid enough for that or not?
Why don't you have coffee together? Don't make it a big thing, just talk and see what you recommend, as the next step, not recommend totally.
I'm not gonna be here for the next 2 weeks, but, after that, maybe after the 4th of July.
All right, well, give me a text or a call when you're back in the county.
Judy, you have anything to say before we close this subject out?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm glad they're gonna talk about it.
Next is, new business and the Consumers Energy franchise. I move that, we authorize me as legal agent for the, township and the township clerk sign this agreement as presented. And that, thank you, and that, within 30 days, we publish the wording in the appropriate publication. We have support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Good, I think we're down to public comment again. Yes.
My name's Daniel O'Neill, 49 Vine Street. I just wanted to go back to the crystal air thing for a second and say that when it comes to our concerns about the usage of the space there, it's less to do with vegetation and, you know, whether anything gets cut down or not. It's that it's that I don't, like, myself and my children can walk the whole way. It's physically possible to do that. The concern is that I am very certain that a number of the people who own those front lot properties would consider that trespassing and take action up to and including deadly force because they've said as much to us. So it's not a hypothetical statement about ease of access and visibility or anything like that. It's very much a life and limb sort of situation. And I'd also like to say that on that same note, what Mr. Casera mentioned about Mr. Salva's proposal working with Frankfurt, that's like the best thing I've ever heard, right? Because then I would know that if there was a dispute, there would be a police officer who's coming up. So like as a backwater of concerns, that's a very possible solution. So, but just to emphasize that our concern is not about trees and vegetation so much as it is threat of violence. So, while we're exercising our rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Molly?
Molly, now 49 Vine. Just kind of as a follow on from that, I think that Sarah kind of talked about, there's all these ambiguities as this enforcement is being reworded about like, if a front lotter comes and is like, you can't be here, like, obviously if they're like, well, I would consider that trespassing and I'll shoot anybody who tries it, which is something a front lotter said to us last summer, that's legally actionable, right? But greater areas like, get your kids off my beach this instant. It's not clear, but like, is that illegal? It's certainly wrong, right? So just encouraging you, if an agenda item could be added to next month's meeting, specifically soliciting public comment from both front lotters and back lotters in the neighborhood about issues like that. I think that would be valuable. Because I would like you guys to hear some of the things that happen in the neighborhood. So that as you're rewriting this ordinance, you can consider what sorts of issues you're likely to need to address in the future. Soliciting comment would be very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make any public comment?
Amy, I just have one.
Yes.
Please don't use that stuff on our roads.
Yeah. It's so bad.
It's awful.
My 11-year-old
I don't know, maybe the cost is a third less.
It's so, I'll pay for it next week.
At this point, we're not done yet. It's board comment, any board
Yeah,
comment?
I have a comment.
Yes.
When we have rules on who can ask the attorney for opinions. right?
Yes,
You know, there's gotta be two people or something, or a clerk and whatever. But I think that we also in the past have we've approved the fact that any communication, whether it's by email or mail or whatever, at the time should be communicated to all the board members.
and has that not happened?
I'm not sure. I think there might have been some communications that you made for our attorney that I never got. I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter right now. I just wanted the future to remind people who have the authority to talk to our attorney, whatever, to please include all the board members on
And this would apply to every single person, right?
every single person on the board.
Okay, because I find that, we had some members communicate and didn't communicate.
I think everybody should.
Yes, and the other thing is that the lawyer, I asked him repeatedly, when he replies, to make sure to reply to everyone, and he won't do it. He says, I will reply to you, and I will reply to the clerk, and then you distribute it.
Okay, that's fine, as long as the person who's directed to distributes.
Okay, and
Like a point of clarification, I do a lot of communication with the attorney on various zoning issues and so on and so forth. Do you want to be copied on all of that?
I don't see why it wouldn't hurt. I mean, you can attach our emails on there with a click and.
Well, and I didn't know about all of this, so when I contacted him about a FOIA request.
I think that at some point you've got to, I think that was an interesting thing to pass. And what the fear is here, and whether it's substantiated, because, and the lawyer finds this encumbrance.
Well, it's just transparency, my opinion, it's
Yeah.
transparency. Well, we could just remind everybody to try to do that for a while. We can always change that down the road if we find out it's not working.
Does it behoove us to have transparency in everybody's communication, not just with the lawyer? If I say, could I see what you talked about with so-and-so?
No, well, that's a different thing. We're allowed to talk. We're not supposed to talk to 3 board members at the same time.
Right,
So, but 2,
right.
that's not a quorum.
But if I ask what went on and they go, none of my
That's a different-
business.
That's going too far. If
Oh,
we're talking about you're
okay.
paying somebody for an opinion, an attorney. And that costs the township money, and I think we should know what that is.
Yeah,
But you
I'm
can't,
trying to get this over here.
but you can't ask for individual. If I were to talk to Dr. Northway, I don't think that should necessarily go to all the board members. Or to communicate with him.
Okay, and any other board comment at this time? And just to close out the meeting, I wanted to mention the loss of Jeff Sandman over the weekend, that quite a tragedy, and a young man, and had done a lot of work through the years for different governments. He was the president of the Honor Council, and just wanted to mention that and send our condolences to the wife and children, so. Any other thing at this point? All right, I don't know exactly what time it is, but I'm gonna find, it's 9:03. Thank you for coming tonight. This meeting is adjourned.